Israel, oameni și fapte. O emisiune Alfa Omega născută din dorința de a vorbi de bine poporul Domnului din Israel. Aceste înregistrări, realizate de Alfa Omega în Israel, aduc în fața dumneavoastră locuitori sau misionari din Israelul zilelor noastre, cu mărturiile lor, cu poveștile lor de viață. Oameni care trăiesc într-o țară cum nu este alta pe pământ, țara aleasă de Dumnezeu pentru poporul său, Israel.
Suntem la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Israel, oameni și fapte. Și în ediția de astăzi vrem să vă aducem înaintea dumneavoastră pe un om deosebit pe care l-am întâlnit aici, în Israel, în Ierusalim. Avi Lipkin este numele lui, este evreu cu origine evreiești, dar născut locuitor al acestor ținuturi de mult timp. Este un om care are credință puternică conform tradițiilor ebraice, dar este foarte deschis pentru comunitatea evanghelică. Este o persoană care a vorbit în multe locuri, în comunități evanghelice, prezentând Scriptura dintr-o perspectivă interesantă a unuia care cunoaște foarte bine Vechiul Testament. Nu este o persoană religioasă neapărat, este un om care a încercat să facă ceva mai mult pentru națiunea lui, inițiind o grupare, Bible Block se numește blocul biblic, o grupare chiar politică care se vrea să pună împreună aici în Israel oamenii cărții, cum spune el, adică evrei și creștini împreună. Este unul dintre evrei care recunoaște că împreună cu creștinii, evrei vor putea avea biruință și pot să avanseze pentru că au același Dumnezeu la care se închină, și evrei și creștinii. Are încă rezerve în a recunoaște pe Iisus Hristos ca Mesia în mod public, dar Domnul lucrează la inima lui într-un mod interesant. Haideți să urmărim acest interviu cu Avi Lipkin.
Well, praise God. I have a family that goes back to King David on my father's side and to I believe, the King of Poland on my mother's side, the Blue Eyes. And they moved from Europe to Argentina 100 years ago. And then my parents moved to New York. So I was born in New York. I'm an American, but Spanish is my mother tongue also. And then I came to Israel. My wife is Egyptian, so we also speak Arabic. So we have many languages. And I studied Russian also. So I love languages, and I love history, and I love people. And I love God.
Of course. And from where came this passion to discover the God's plan in the Bible? Because people know you that someone who tried to bring revelation and understanding from the Bible. Why it's important this, and how this came in your heart?
Well, you know, I've been in Israel 50 years, and I love history. And when you love history, you do not judge one side or the other side, because both sides are right in their own way. So I love history. I love learning about Islam, learning about Christianity, learning about Judaism, learning about all the religions, and seeing how God looks on all his children, because all human beings are his children. I see a threat, and we saw this especially with ISIS, with Daesh, that the killing that was going on, and also where Muslims are killing Muslims. And this broke my heart, because I hate it when anyone dies. But what it teaches is that Israel is now facing a reality in which the populations of countries like Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, these countries are going to be facing increasing civil war with fanatic Islam. And in other words, there will be those who are not, they may be Muslim, but they're not fanatic Muslims. So of course they are infidels in the eyes of the fanatic Muslims. And there is no solution. In other words, they will be fighting each other, and the populations in our neighboring countries will empty out.
Let's try for our viewers, not all are specialists in Bible or in understanding the history or geopolitical aspects, to identify few key points. What are the main challenges in the Middle East now? Maybe some hot spots in the Middle East.
Well, of course, I think what we see most closely is Syria. And we see developing news, which is very interesting. I've written 7 books. My 7th book talks about the war in Syria and the involvement of Russia. And what is interesting is that the Russian people, and of course the Orthodox Church, came to Russia in 995 AD because of the Turkish invasions, Tatari, Chechensi, Cherkessi. I also speak Russian. And these invasions brought about 1,000 years of war between Orthodox Christians, not only Russians, also Romanians, also Bulgarians, Catholic Poland. This is a multi-century war. This is a multi-front war, and it's not over. In other words, Europeans, after the Second World War, said, no more war. We have to find a way to stop war. This is the European Union. But the Islamic mindset is no. Allah commands us to conquer in His name. And they laugh at the Europeans who think that the wars are over. No, the wars are still in the 7th century in Islam. And the problem, though, with the Muslims is they are killing each other also. And they're killing each other more than they're killing Jews or Christians or anyone else. I believe there's going to be a crisis one day in which not the Christians and not the Jews, what we call the bankers, the oil people, the globalists, the Europeans, are going to come and say, we are finished with Islam. Islam is too dangerous. They are blowing up the oil wells. They are blowing up the Kaaba, the Black Stone in Mecca. They are spreading weapons of mass destruction. This is not good for our economics. And the day will come, I believe, that the one world government will ban Islam. And again, not the Christians, not the Jews, the one world government. And then they will say to Israel, now you build your temple. And then when Israel builds its temple, the one world government will say, we send our leader to officiate at your temple. And you know who that is. So we are now living in these very, very spectacular times.
So introduce the idea of globalist. So many of Christian leaders, they are watching to the political leaders, Erdogan, Putin, Trump, I don't know, in Iran. They say they will play the games. And they said not, in the end time will be maybe another structure who will dictate the decisions. Maybe you can give more details about this perspective.
The Iranians are Shiites, mostly Shiites, controlled by Shiites. Turkey is mostly Turkish and Sunni. Russia has been an enemy of the Turks for 1,000 years. So the way I see it, and I write about this in my book, the Turks and the Russians see each other as Nazis. So, of course, the Jewish people had a problem for 13 years with the Third Reich of Hitler, but it's been 1,000 years between the Orthodox Christians and the Muslims. The Russians support Iran, the Shiites, because the Shiites are the enemy of the Sunni. So you use the enemy of your enemy to do the fighting for you. That's why the Russians, one of the reasons the Russians are supporting Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Don't forget that Bashar al-Assad is also defending the Christians, because the Christians of Syria are 10% of the population. The Shia are 10%. The Druze, there's a group called the Druze, descended from Jethro, they're 7%. And you have Yazidis and you have Kurds. These were all basically in alliance with the Bashar al-Assad regime, and about 60 to 70% of the population is Sunni. Syria had 20 million population. Syria today is 10 million. Half the population is dead, or 500,000 died, and the rest, they fled to other countries, to Europe. The populations now are shrinking as a result of civil war. What I shared with you was that, and this was before the Russians really came into Syria with great force. Bashar al-Assad was losing against the Sunnis, against ISIS. When the Russians came in, they hit ISIS very strong and all the opponents of the Bashar regime. And basically the Russians saved Bashar al-Assad, the Shiites, the Christians, the Kurds, the Druze. But 85% of the Muslims are Sunnis. And many of them, many of the most extreme, are in South Russia. They are Chechens, they are Uzbeks, Tajiks, other South Russian republics. When Christians ask me about the Armageddon, I said, you have 200 million Turks in the Turkish republics of the Soviet Union. You have 70 million in Turkey. Now, Turkey is a little complicated because Turkey is 31% Shia. But the Shia are suppressed. You don't hear about them. 25% are Kurds. They're suppressed. You don't hear about them so much. So Turkey itself is 44% Turkish Sunni. But the 6 republics of the former Soviet Union, they're 200 million Sunni Turks. And so what I think is going to happen is, at some stage, I think that Russia will not be in Syria anymore. I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say as a politician. I'm becoming now a politician. You know, my political party is getting registered. But Putin is a nationalist. Trump is a nationalist. Netanyahu is a nationalist. And the British leadership today is nationalist. They want Brexit. They want to break away from the globalist European Union. Now, history is like a pendulum. It goes back and forth, back and forth. And the pendulum now is swinging to the right. But I think there is a possibility in Russia that the globalist oligarchs, the ones who are making so much money, that some people in Europe may say to them, if you kill Putin, we can make billions of dollars and trillions of dollars. And because Putin is a nationalist, this is stopping business. And so personally, I pray for Putin. I'm not with the globalists. Same with Trump. Same with Netanyahu. If Russia pulls out of Syria because the oligarchs take over, Syria falls to the Sunnis. Syria falls to the Sunnis, they're going to come to kill the Christians, the Shiites, the Druze, the Kurds, everyone. Now, the Druze have a mountain not far from Israel, not far from the Golan Heights, and there are 700,000 Druze there. And the real reason the Russians came in 2 years ago was to defend also the Druze, because Bashar al-Assad could not do it. We have Druze in our army and in our population. We have a minister, wonderful man, Ayub Kara, who is trying to convince Netanyahu to invade the south of Syria and to conquer this mountain of the Druze, to protect it from any enemy, but especially the Sunnis, which means Israel's borders expand into South Syria. Now, I'm going to tell you a joke, but it's not a funny joke. It's actually a very tragic joke. And there was a Jordanian comedian who received a fatwa. He received a death sentence from ISIS because he was mocking them. He was pretending to be a guard, and a car comes up to the checkpoint and has Lebanese plates. When you see Lebanese plates, there's a problem. There were 4 men in the car, a Christian, a Sunni, a Shia, and a Druze. And they're all friends, because in Lebanon, everyone's friends. See, Lebanon is like Switzerland. All the different ethnic groups, Germans, Italians, French, are all together. And so the guard, as part of the joke, asked the men, who are you? I'm Druze. I believe in Jethro as the great prophet. Christians, I believe in Jesus Christ. Shia, we are different than the Sunni. We are infidels. And the 4th is Sunni, but he's a collaborator with the enemies. So all 4 have to die, and the guard goes ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and he kills all 4 of them. So I'm predicting that the day will come that ISIS will win in Syria, or come close to winning, and that the 4 groups in Lebanon will actually come to Israel and say, please invade our country and protect us from the Sunnis, because you're going to have 200 million Turks coming. Okay, now, there's another problem. Iran is 50% Shia Persian. The other 50% are minorities. And many of them, including the Kurds and the Azeris, they're Sunni. And you have Baluchis in this. I don't know if your people know these names, but 50% of Iran doesn't like the Ayatollahs. And so we may find a civil war in Iran. And we may find a civil war in Turkey, because the Iranians have said to Erdogan that if you make trouble for Bashar al-Assad, we will instigate a rebellion amongst the 31% of Turkey, which is Shia. And I don't know yet how the situation with the Kurds will resolve itself. My personal faith is that the day will come that Israel's borders will include Lebanon, will include Syria, up to the Euphrates. And who's going to be on the other side? The Kurds. And we will be neighbors and allies with the Kurds. So that's regarding Lebanon and Syria. Jordan has an interesting story. The king of Jordan is not Jordanian. The king of Jordan, Abdullah, he's Saudi. Now, if you remember Lawrence of Arabia, there was a big battle between the Hashemites and the Sauds. And so the British, in order to make peace, gave this family, the Hashemites of Saudi Arabia, gave them Jordan, Iraq, and Syria. So the kings, the Hashemite kings of Iraq and Syria, were killed very quickly, and Amir Abdullah lasted, and then King Hussein, and then now Abdullah. But they are foreigners. 70% of Jordan are Palestinian. They don't like the king. And 30% who are Bedouin, many have become Muslim radicals. And so I'm always looking at the possibility of an assassination of King Abdullah by the fanatic Muslims who don't like him. They're going to say he's foreigner, he's not one of us. If ISIS kills King Abdullah, then you're going to have black flags along the Jordan River, which means they're digging tunnels under the river, which means Israel cannot stand by this, and means Israel will have to take Jordan. Saudi Arabia, there are 4 problems. ISIS also is going to kill the royal family of Saudi Arabia. They're going to destroy the oil wells to destroy the world economy. Again, the globalists, the one world government, they're going to blow up the Kaaba, the Black Stone, and they're going to spread weapons of mass destruction. 9/11 attacks and atomic, biological, and chemical weapons attacks on the West. Millions of people will die. So the globalists will say, this is not good for our globalist economy. We're going to ban Islam. And we're going to command Israel to take Saudi Arabia and Jordan. So Israel's borders, for different geopolitical reasons, Israel's borders expand. And as far as population, the Muslims in the West are planning a Holocaust against the Jews and their Christian spouses, because in America, there's 80% marriage between Christians and Jews. So if the Jew has to flee to Israel, he will take his Christian spouse with him, or her Christian spouse. So I believe the population of Israel will grow from 7-8 million to 20 million soon. So we'll have new borders and bigger borders, bigger population. And I think all of this is in preparation for the coming or return of the Messiah.
This perspective is quite unusual because everyone knows that at this time Israel is fighting to keep the borders, including West Bank or Gaza, or different kind of pressure against it. And you said in the end, the time that will come, Israel will have larger territory. It's a biblical support for this. It's somewhere in the Bible that Israel has a larger territory that they have now.
Deuteronomy 9:11. Deuteronomy 9:11. And I want to tell you something. It will be good for the Arabs. They will have such a prosperity. There will be so much work. And, you know, many times when I meet with Arabs, they're shocked because I say to them, anything good for the Jews will be 100 times better for the Arabs. Anything bad for the Jews will be 100 times worse for the Arabs. So the Arabs should hope for the success of the Jews.
Yeah, the Bible said that Israel, in a way or another way, will be a blessing for other nations.
Right.
I don't know if this includes, we say only as a Gentile in the Christian countries in Europe, we enter under this blessing, but probably the perspective is much, much larger. Talking about the Middle East, everyone is looking to the nuclear potential conflict who came from Iran. Can you describe why, what is the root of this conflict, and why it's serious, it will happen? We have to expect a nuclear conflict, or it's something that will be stopped?
Yes, well, firstly, you have to remember that Israel and the United States started the nuclear project in Iran. The Shah of Iran was an ally of the United States and Israel. Iran, under the Shah, was the cornerstone of the Cold War against the Soviet Union. After the death, after the overthrow of the Shah, now the Ayatollah said, well, we have it. Are we going to stop? No, we're going to continue. You know, I've been in trouble before, because when I was in Switzerland, I said that Islam is not a religion, but a criminal psychosis. Now, you may have to edit this, but I say it. And Allah is Satan. Allah is not the God of the Jews and the Christians. So these people, because it's criminal psychosis, they want to have the bomb. And once Ayatollah Khomeini said, even if Iran loses half of its population, half, 35, 40 million people, Iran will win. This is crazy. Now, Israel, of course, is watching very closely, and Israel has many allies in this question, President Trump also. One of the things we have to remember is that North Korea, Iran, and Syria, all three of them are allies, and they are all working together on nuclear projects. If you remember, the Israelis attacked at Deir ez-Zor 10 years ago. So this was a North Korean project. The Iranians received much help from the North Koreans. So if you have what I call a crazy leadership, again, criminal psychosis leadership, they don't care if many, many tens of millions of people die. This is just crazy. I'm telling you, the globalists don't like crazy. The globalists like economic stability. Make money.
Yes. How you see in the next in the proximity, how to say, in the following years, not long perspective, the problem of the state of Palestine and like a two-state solution, because we talk a lot about this. This will happen or not, many talk about occupied territory or settlements of illegal occupation or other kind of non-democratical system of how do you respond to this, to people who talk about non-democratic system or apartheid, even accuse Israel, or it's a chance for a Palestinian country to be formed, or maybe make some comment on this.
Let me put it like this. If our next door neighbor was Adolf Hitler and he says, I'm going to kill all the Jews, can we make a state with him? We can't. Islam says to kill the Jews on Saturday and kill the Christian on Sunday. This is at the heart of the faith. So maybe for reasons of political correctness, Netanyahu said, okay, we'll have two-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution, and they don't want a one-state solution. What they want is to kill the Jews on Saturday and the Christian on Sunday. By the way, I have to tell you something. I'm a student of history. And, you know, in America, at first, there were 13 colonies. And the white people of Europe who came to America, sometimes they did deals like the island of Manhattan, New York City. Island of Manhattan was bought for $24 in trinkets and jewelry. The Indians, the Native Americans, they gave them for $24 of nothing, of junk. After this, the Indians were attacking. So every time the Indians attacked, the white people expanded until they reached the Pacific Ocean. Now, of course, the Native Americans, all the Indian tribes, they became Americans. There is no more, oh, you're an Indian, or you're a white. Everything is now mixed. Everyone has Indian blood in America today. Same in Mexico, Latin America. This is called manifest destiny. In English, manifest destiny means a destiny that cannot be stopped. So the American destiny went from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Similarly, the Russians, as you know from history, they expanded into Europe, but they also had a push to the east, all the way to Korea and Japan. So this is also manifest destiny. I believe Israel also has manifest destiny. Now, the Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, the Arabs, they could have agreed to a little country of Israel between Tel Aviv and Haifa, just a little piece of land, in 1936. It was called the Peel Commission. They said no. Then the United Nations gave them, the Jewish people, a little bit more land. The Palestinians said no. So we got the 48, 49 boundaries. Then we got the 67 boundaries. And the Khartoum conference in summer of 68, they said no peace, no negotiations, no recognition. No, no, no. And to this day, I mean, we made peace with Egypt, which has been a very good peace. We made peace with Jordan, which is a very good peace until now. But it all ends with one bullet. One bullet, it's over. Because Jordan is not a democratic country. Middle East is not a democratic place. Syria is still at war with Israel officially. So God finishes off Syria. Syria now is cantons, it's broken up. Iraq, they're still at war with Israel. So look, where's Iraq? There is no Iraq. You have Shia Iraq in the east, Sunni Iraq in the west, they hate each other, and the Kurds, God willing, soon will have their own country. And I will do everything I can to help the Kurds.
Tell us about how to see the situation of Christians in different countries, the Middle East. We didn't know too much in Romania about this. We pray for the safety, but that's it. Not news in the secular media about the Christians.
Well, firstly, you know, my wife is from Egypt. And she said to me, you know, she's Jewish, but she knows about the Christians and the Muslims. And, you know, the Muslims conquered Egypt with their invasions in the 7th century. But Egypt still had a Christian majority. But over 1,300 years, the Christian majority became smaller and smaller and smaller. Now the Christians, the Coptic Christians, are 10, 15% only. And the Muslims are the majority. The Middle East, I don't have to tell you, Turkey was the Byzantine Empire. You know, Orthodox Christianity. And even Romania, Bulgaria, I think Hungary was under a Turkish rule for 150 years. And, you know, I have to praise the Romanian people for their heroism and steadfastness in fighting the Turks. It was hundreds of years of battles. And even the Polish, you know, sent an army to Vienna to fight against the Turks. The Russians, you know, I mean, the Russians have done some very barbaric things. You know, I don't know if you know, for example, Sochi in the south of Russia, there was a group there called the Circassians, and they claim that the Russian army under the Tsars in 1854 killed in Sochi 3 million Circassians. So this is like Hitler and the Holocaust for the Turks. I'm telling you, there's a history between the Turks and the Russians, which is a very bad history, 1,000 years. You know, we had a problem with the Germans in World War II, but in World War I, the German army under Kaiser Wilhelm came into Poland as the liberators. And my family was starving under the Russians, and the Germans came in and they fed us. And they gave my grandfather work, and they trained him. So, like, you know, the Germans were good to the Jews in World War I. And in 13 years, the Nazism made the people, you know, the leadership crazy. And I don't know if you know this or not, 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, but 7 million Christians died in the Holocaust. Hitler killed 7 million Christians. And he killed them before he killed the Jews. So that when the time of the Jews came, there was nobody to defend them. So Germany today, okay, they're our friends again. You know, again, the pendulum swings back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we have today a group called the Muslims, and the Muslims are good people. I used to hate Germans. Today I love the Germans, but I hate Nazism. I love the Turks, I love the Arabs, I love the Muslims, but Islam as a system is satanic. And they kill the Jews on Saturday, and they kill the Christians on Sunday, and they kill the Hindus, and they kill the Buddhists, and they kill the blacks in Africa, and they kill each other. You tell me this is a religion? This is crazy. It's insanity. And so in Switzerland, I said this every night in 23 German churches, and I got a 3-year jail sentence for hate speech. I said Islam is not a religion. It's a criminal psychosis bent on the destruction of the human race. So if the leadership of the Palestinians talks like this and believes like this, will there be a Palestinian state? They don't want a state. They just want to kill us.
A fost un interviu special realizat cu Avi Lipkin, un om de o revelație deosebită a vremurilor din urmă. Este un om care are multă înțelegere și înțelepciune, și scriptural, și duhovnicească, dar și oarecum înțelege și politica lumii acesteia prin perspectiva Scripturii. E un om care are o dar al revelației deosebit și ne bucurăm că a fost împreună cu noi la această emisiune Israel, oameni și fapte. Deci, iată, oameni deosebiți, oameni obișnuiți din Israelul zilelor noastre. Dumnezeu să vă binecuvinteze până la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Israel, oameni și fapte.